that. Let's jump into the next one, the 80-20 rule. So you put this in the docket. Love to hear a little bit of context. That way we can level set for folks and for me.
Sure.
I have some thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear kind of what you're thinking there and then what's your strategy.
Yeah. So I've been thinking more about the 80-20 rule because somebody sent me this book. It's an old book. It's called 80-20 Sales and Marketing, the definitive guide to working less and making more by Perry Marshall. I think it was made in like 2013, but the principles pretty much stay the same. And I think it can be summed up like it could have been summed up very quick. So basically the 80-20 rule, or the what is it? The Pareto, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, principle, states that roughly 80% of the effect comes from 20% of the cases. What we mean in context of like growth marketing and specifically our specialty paid search is like 80% of your sales come from 20% of your marketing. And so like 80% of your Google and ads performance comes from about 20% of your account. And I think that's big, like whenever you're onto a new account or whenever you're auditing or whenever you're thinking like, what can I possibly do to improve my account? So what it could be is like, there's probably like a handful of keywords, like when you're just looking at your search campaigns that are driving like majority of your performance, probably about 20%, driving 80% of your performance. And I think it's a really good mindset to have, particularly like this 80-20 principle, because like a lot of times, especially in large accounts, it could be overwhelming. And like when you just take a step back and you realize that like, okay, like I could be doing all these things to try to improve performance, run these tests, but what's going to make the biggest difference? And it's like 20% of the account that's driving 80% of your performance. And like, take a look at your accounts now, everyone listening, and like, it could be paid search, it could be social, it could be anything, any kind of growth channel. And you'll realize that like this 80-20 principle particularly lies, maybe it's 90-10, maybe it's 60-40, whatever it is, there's a portion of the account that drives majority of the performance. So, so I would say that by performance, like when I think of like, okay, taking a step back, it's like, how do you look at like what is actually driving performance? And the ways that I think about it in segmenting, and you could look at also when you're pulling data and insights for like audits and new accounts and just like kind of see where there's areas of improvements, is like start off with, okay, campaign type. All right, you got your search campaigns, shopping, maybe soon to be performance max, maybe your YouTube, discovery, display. Split it out like that. See which ones are driving majority of performance, focusing on that. Another one is like specific campaigns, like which specific campaigns are driving majority of your traffic. Outside, maybe exclude brands, but like you have like maybe 4 or 5 non-brand campaigns, maybe you have like 100. Like which ones are driving particularly majority of the performance. So you go campaign type, and you go campaigns, then you look at ad groups. Okay, you're in an ad group. You're in a campaign and you see like, okay, well, these 2 ad groups out of these 10 are driving majority of the performance. And then the next one I look at is like keywords and search terms. And again, it's like you're running on 300 search terms and you see that it's like 60 keywords are, you're running 300 keywords and like 60 keywords are driving majority of the performance. Then you break that down even further and you realize it's like 5 that are driving like majority of your performance. What I usually find. So the next thing I wanted to say was like, now you're going to know where to focus your landing page test, your bid adjustments. Maybe you go more granular into your search query reports because like you have a super large account and you're just trying to see like not every little search query, like everywhere you spent money every single day. It's like, well, let's just focus on like that area that's driving, that's taking up majority, driving majority of performance. And if you just excluded that one particular search term or that few search terms, like you could drastically improve your performance because it's also majority of your spend. I think that this structure really applies to everything. But Yeah, I think like for particularly, and I'm gonna skip I had some stuff in my notes, but um yeah, I was gonna stop with this and like Trent, like what is your take on this? And I have a few more notes, but like I'll hand it off to you in terms of like, do you take this principle into account when managing, like taking a step back and looking like, okay, like I could do a million things, like what's gonna have the biggest impact if I just focused on this?
Yeah. No, it's on my best days. This is at like the front of my mind. It's 80/20. On my worst days, I'm optimizing on things that don't matter and it's low spend. So it's a great framework to come into each day with. I early on kind of learned this principle just from like taking on accounts, and I was like taught just to do sort campaign spend and find like what the top converters are, because most of the spend was like around like these one set of keywords.
Sure.
And how I framed it back then was, if I can only do one thing today, what would make the company the most money? Which is kind of a different route to thinking 80/20. Like, let me make sure I'm focusing my efforts on the most impactful things. So I took a little bit of a different route to it, which is just like,
Yeah.
time is limited. Where's like my focus the most impactful? And that really helped me. But every day is like a challenge, right? Because there's things that come up, either yourself, you want to go and like optimize maybe these like things on the edges that are big time. They demand a lot of time. And also you get pulled into things with different teams, and sometimes it may not be the most impactful thing. So it's hard. But yeah, I try to live by this, because it is true. The accounts, they aggregate at the top on like a select few things. And if you could focus your efforts there, then you can improve the account usually.